It's been a tough few years for Hawke's Bay's apple industry. From severe labour shortages during the COVID-19 pandemic to successive years of bad weather and then last year's Cyclone Gabrielle. But there's hope for the future. Craigmore Sustainables has added several Hawke's Bay orchards to its horticulture portfolio in recent months. The Rural Investment Agency manages more than 33,000 hectares of dairy, grazing, forestry and horticulture land around New Zealand. Its business manager of development, who oversees its orchards in Hawke's Bay and Gisborne, says the foreign investment is much needed.
I'm Flynn, business manager of development at Craigmore. So I look after our newly acquired apple orchards on the Heretaunga Plains, Central Hawke's Bay and Gisborne. Craigmore is a pilot to bring in overseas investment in the apple business, focused in on areas where we can help the region and help the economics within the region. One of our first ventures was in Central Hawke's Bay as well as Gisborne. Now we're focusing in the Heretaunga Plains as well, and just bringing in some foreign investment, some well-needed capital into the industry to allow the industry to thrive and keep growing as it needs to.
Can you talk to me about some of the recent acquisitions? It feels like every other week we're hearing about Craigmore, lots of development going across here. It's
spreading its risk across horticulture and agriculture with the different funds that it's providing opportunities for. As we continue to grow and invest into one crop, we look at another crop and make sure that we reduce that risk, but also continue to grow and establish our apple business, our grape business, our kiwi fruit business. We're standing in a new orchard that we've just purchased in June, and we're currently looking at a new planting of rocket. We've developed about 21 hectares in this orchard in the last 2 or 3 months, historically in old Royal Gala, and we've put in 21 hectares of rocket, dazzle and Prem A47 into new structures and new planting systems.
Can you tell me a little bit about the block here? So what kind of varieties were growing and why have you maybe transitioned away from some of them?
The 21 hectares that we're standing in now was all in Royal Gala, which is a tried and true variety for growers, and everyone across New Zealand, if not the world, knows Royal Gala. But unfortunately, its cost of production now is outweighing the returns. So as we need to keep evolving and changing and listening to what the markets are after, we have had to redevelop 3 of the newer varieties that we've got in front of us today.
And what is it you're seeing in those varieties that's made you transition to them? That's where the market's heading for? What are consumers looking for in their fruits?
Red, point of difference. Rocket obviously is a smaller apple, more of a snack apple. Not the norm, I guess. We're needing to keep changing and evolving and listening to the consumer, so something that's different attracts a premium price in some shape or form.
We're here at this new block that you guys are developing. Can you talk me through for our listeners what we're looking at in terms of the infrastructure that is involved in setting up a new orchard site and why you guys have chosen this particular setup?
I guess there's been a lot of changes in the industry in the last 10 years, so we've gone from roughly 1,000 to 1,500 trees per hectare to now we're looking at close to 2.5 to, in some areas here, 3,500 trees per hectare. And with that, root systems are a lot smaller and require a lot more support. So the support structures, posts and wires, and the trellising system is beefed up compared to what we had 20 years ago.
So have the 3 wires running across. And
Yeah. So they need that extra support, and with that has come extra production. So in terms of the industry, averages I think have been, historically 30, 40, 50 tonne a hectare. We're hopefully looking at this when it's in full production will be 90, 100, 110, 120 tonne a hectare. So we've certainly continually learning and evolving in how we're doing things.
Just looking at it to describe it for our audience members, we've got posts every 5 metres or so?
9.6 metres.
9.6 twice every 9.6 metres, and you know, there's the 3 wires running across as the supports, there's irrigation, the trees, which are obviously still very, very young, maybe a metre high or so, would you say?
Exactly a metre. The rows have actually closed up over the last 10-15 years. We're historically 4.5 metres. We're looking here at a 3 metre row spacing. The trees haven't filled the gap yet, but yeah, certainly in terms of automation and harvesting, we're trying to future-proof that. What that looks like is yet to be proven though.
You can't help driving around Hawke's Bay but pass through or pass by orchards that were obviously quite badly affected by the cyclone, and we've seen some of the blocks owned by Craigmore as well that were the same. Has, out of the bad that was the cyclone, have there been new opportunities to move the industry forward, to move with some of these trends you're seeing?
Yeah, certainly. So there's varieties that everyone is looking at, investing in, taking a cautious approach because they're somewhat new and maybe unproven. Although the cyclone was extremely devastating, there are, or has forced us to look at innovations, different planting techniques, different ways that we produce a crop, looking at different technologies, equipment, and looking for innovations in that sense, because we can't just continue to do the norm. As our labour costs increase, we need to look at different ways to increase production, reduce cost, and be world leaders in growing apples.
Was it quite hard sourcing some of the new trees, given particularly the number of people who would have been looking to replant post-cyclone?
So we order either 2 years or 1 year in advance, so the nurseries are well aware of what's coming. But yes, certainly the people that came straight in after the cyclone and wanted to replant was what destruction they might have had, put a little bit more pressure on the system, but prior to that there was quite a bit of planting happening, so I guess the nurseries were ready for it in some shape or form because it had slightly dropped off prior to the cyclone.
Where do you think the industry might be headed? What are some of the potential opportunities that might exist?
Hey, automation and harvesting. If we can get people off ladders and platforms and able to have some kind of picker that picks all the fruit for us, it would be great to see. I think that's still quite a few years away, but there's certainly different innovations that we're looking at sprayers, fruit counting, all sorts of ways that we could be improving before we get to that next level of automation and harvesting.
What are some of the challenges for the industry?
Capital constraint is quite significant. To set up something like this is probably north of $200,000 a hectare. Then you've got 2 to 3 years worth of growing costs before you actually start returning a crop. So yeah, the need for foreign investment as well as investment from New Zealanders is extremely important for our industry.
Is there a bit of pushback, or is it difficult in an industry, when people think about corporates or they think about some of these larger businesses? Obviously the investment is really important, but do you find that there's a bit of a tension within the industry around that?
I think for the greater good of the industry, everyone's on board and wants to see us all thrive. I think we've got to remember the grower ultimately pays for most of it along the way, so that need for the investment comes in all facets across the fully integrated business. But yeah, the grower needs the support from the industry, really. Yeah.
As someone who's been in the industry a long time, when you look at this new development that's still going on, especially when it's been before the cyclone, it had been a few hard years for the industry. We've been reading for years about people pulling out blocks. How do you feel when you see this new development happening?
Oh, it's exciting. It's good to see further investment within the industry and people willing to still have a go, even though we've faced a number of challenges over the last 3 or 4 years. Although the cyclone has proved to be one of the most challenging things we've faced, I think there's going to be some good that comes out of it in the way we look at doing things for the future.
That was Shane Flynn of Craigmore Sustainables speaking to Janina Schwanecker.